Number 5. Jon Jones is the former UFC light heavyweight champion and is considered to be the best pound-for-pound fighter ever. After he successfully defended his UFC light heavyweight title against Daniel Cormier at UFC 182, he was involved in a hit-and-run accident and was stripped of his UFC light heavyweight title and was suspended indefinitely. Whilst on the sidelines, he fell in love with powerlifting, where he went from a slim physique to a ripped, muscular physique. He last made his return to the octagon, defeating Ovin Semprou by a unanimous decision, becoming the interim UFC light heavyweight champion at UFC 197. As you guys can see in the comparison, there's a huge difference in how much weight he put on and how much muscle he gained leading up to UFC 197. Number 4. Conor Mcgregor is the current UFC lightweight champion and is arguably the biggest superstar the UFC has ever seen. He made a name for himself when he defeated Jose Aldo in just 13 seconds, winning the UFC featherweight title at UFC 194. As you guys can see here, he really drained himself to make the 145-pound limit. He next fought Nate Diaz twice at 170-pound limit, where he lost the first fight by a rear naked choke in the second round and won the second fight by a unanimous decision at UFC 202. As you guys can see here, it looks like he didn't have much trouble making the 170-pound limit. He next finally made the move to the 155-pound division and defeated Eddie Alvarez by TKO in the second round, becoming the first ever two-weight world champion. Here are the weigh-in comparisons. As you guys can see, he is an expert in transforming his body for any fight. Number 3. Anthony Johnson had always had trouble making the welterweight limit and failed to make the 170-pound limit many times. He was released by the UFC and fought in various other promotions as a light heavyweight. When he made his return to the UFC, he looked like a totally different fighter, destroying majority of his competition, holding 6 wins and 1 loss in the promotion. He always belonged in the 205-pound division, as we've seen what Anthony Johnson is fully capable of in this weight class. As you guys can see in this comparison, there's a tremendous difference in both physiques, and it shows that he should have been in the 205-pound division from the beginning of his career. Number 2. Alistair Overeem made his UFC debut, defeating Brock Lesnar by TKO in the first round at UFC 141. He was next scheduled to face Junior Dos Santos at UFC 146 for the UFC heavyweight title. Leading up to the event, he was removed from the card due to testing positive for elevated testosterone levels and was suspended for 9 months. When he made his return, his physique looked a lot smaller than it was, and there was a big difference in both physiques. He next lost 3 of his 4 fights, forcing him to change his aggressive fighting style. He came back and put together a 4-fight winning streak and faced Stipe Miocic for the UFC heavyweight title at UFC 203, where he lost the fight by TKO in the first round. Number 1. Whilst former UFC champion Vitor Belfort was on TRT in 2013, he put together a solid 3-fight winning streak, destroying Michael Bisping, Luke Rockhold and Dan Henderson, earning himself a title shot. When USADA was introduced, TRT was banned. In his title fight against Chris Weidman at UFC 187, there was a huge difference in his physique, and his performance in the fight showed a slower and aged Vitor Belfort, where he lost the fight by TKO in the first round. As you guys can see, there's a massive difference in both physiques. It is very tough to see him being competitive to the level he was before.